Ted Bundy didn't hunt with knives or guns. He hunted with psychology. Before Ted Bundy ever grabbed a weapon, before he ever approached a victim, he had already begun the hunt. His real tools weren't in his hands, they were in his mind. Tonight, we're not talking about the same old story of Ted Bundy, the escapes, the trials, the sensational headlines. We're pulling back the skin of the myth and looking underneath. Because Ted Bundy wasn't just a killer. He was a blueprint, a living, breathing case study in manipulation, narcissism, predatory behavior, and psychological warfare. Ted Bundy understood something most people never think about. People trust their eyes more than their instincts, so he crafted a mask. He studied how to appear harmless, intelligent, polite, charismatic, the boy next door. This wasn't natural charm. This was a performance. Bundy practiced facial expressions in the mirror. He rehearsed friendly, non-threatening body language. He perfected the kind of smile that made women feel at ease. He once said, "I'm the most cold-blooded son of a bitch you'll ever meet." But the world didn't see a monster. They saw the mask. Bundy didn't choose victims randomly. He was highly calculated. He chose women who were kind, helpful, empathetic. Women who didn't want to appear rude. Women who had been socially conditioned to help a struggling man. He weaponized politeness. He understood that society teaches women to be nurturing, to avoid conflict, and to trust confident men. He looked for that softness because he could exploit it. Nothing about Ted Bundy's crimes was chaotic. Everything was strategy. One of his most famous tactics was pretending to be injured. The cast, the crutches, the struggle with books, the request for help. This is what psychologists call vulnerability bait. By appearing weak, Bundy flipped the predator-prey dynamic. If he looked helpless, the woman felt powerful. If he needed help, she stepped closer. Because humans are wired to protect the vulnerable. Bundy hijacked that wiring. Ted Bundy didn't overpower women because he was strong. He overpowered them because he understood human behavior. Another powerful weapon in his arsenal was mirroring. Bundy used it constantly. He would mimic a woman's tone, match her emotional energy, agree with her interests, reflect her humor. This created instant connection, instant comfort, instant trust. She felt understood. She felt safe. She had no idea he was gathering emotional data he could use against her. Bundy didn't seduce women with charm. He seduced them by reflecting their own personality back at them. But underneath that mask was a deep and dangerous delusion. Bundy didn't simply lie to people. He lied to himself. He believed he was smarter than the police, more attractive than other men, a victim of circumstance, someone who deserved special treatment. His narcissism was so extreme that during his own murder trial, he fired his lawyers so he could represent himself. Not because he was qualified, but because he wanted the spotlight. Narcissism didn't make him confident. It made him delusional. Bundy's psychology becomes even more disturbing when you consider how compartmentalized his life was. He kept different versions of himself in separate boxes: student, boyfriend, political volunteer, crisis hotline worker. He maintained normal relationships and even acted compassionate in certain settings. Some co-workers described him as calm, collected, and surprisingly empathetic on the hotline phones. But that's the hallmark of a psychopath. Emotional mimicry, not emotional experience. He copied empathy by observing it in others. And that ability to switch personas allowed him to blend so deeply into everyday life that even people close to him, friends, co-workers, girlfriends, never imagined what he was capable of. His double life wasn't sloppy or accidental. It was deliberate. Every mask he wore served a purpose. So was Ted Bundy a psychopath or a sociopath? Sociopaths are shaped by their environment. They're impulsive, emotional, reactive, messy. Psychopaths are born with neurological differences. They feel no empathy, no guilt, no emotional connection. They're calm, controlled, calculating. They blend into society because they mimic emotions instead of feeling them. Ted Bundy was not impulsive. He was not emotional. He lived a double life with chilling precision, shallow affect, no remorse, strategic thinking, complete emotional detachment, predatory patience. Ted Bundy was a textbook psychopath. Experts like Dr. Al Carlisle and Dr. Dorothy Lewis reached the same conclusion. Bundy wasn't driven by rage or trauma. He was driven by a cold, calculated need for dominance. He confessed to 30 murders, but investigators believe the real number is far higher. Why lie? Because Bundy enjoyed control. By withholding information, he kept investigators dependent, victims' families suffering, and himself relevant. Even on death row, Bundy controlled the narrative. Bundy also used confession as currency. Anytime he felt cornered, legally, emotionally, psychologically, he dangled confessions like bait. He learned that as long as he kept certain details hidden, he could slow down the clock. These weren't admissions of guilt. They were bargaining chips for attention, power, and survival. Every confession was timed for maximum impact. His escapes weren't about intelligence. They were about psychology. He knew people underestimated him because of the mask he wore. He seemed polite, respectable, harmless. That trust gave him opportunity. Opportunity gave him freedom. And that freedom led to more victims. Another overlooked aspect of Bundy's psyche was his obsession with fantasy. Long before he killed, Bundy built elaborate violent fantasies in his mind and fed them for years. Psychologists call this paraphilic conditioning, when fantasy becomes rehearsal. By the time Bundy committed his first confirmed attack, he had already constructed the crime in his mind thousands of times. The murder wasn't the beginning, it was the culmination. This is the lethal combination of narcissism and psychopathy. When someone truly believes rules don't apply to them, they act as if they're invisible. So why did Bundy kill? He blamed pornography. He blamed anything except himself. But psychologists know the truth. Ted Bundy killed for domination, for control, for the thrill of psychological and physical ownership. He once said, "Murder isn't just a crime of lust or violence, it's possession." That is the mindset of a predator who doesn't see people as people, but as objects to acquire and discard. Most killers leave behind evidence. Ted Bundy left behind a warning. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a man who smiles softly, speaks politely, and holds a pair of crutches. Bundy exploited kindness, trust, empathy, social norms, and the human instinct to not offend a stranger. His psychology wasn't extraordinary. It was disturbingly ordinary. He didn't blend in despite being a predator. He blended in because he was one. Monsters aren't always hiding in the dark. Sometimes they walk beside us in broad daylight, asking for help with a broken arm.